I'm Ben Hammock, and I am making my dream game, Streetball Quest. And I'm going to show you how I went from this to this. I'm going to share with you my full vision of my dream game, Streetball Quest, and some of the problems I ran into along the way, and some of the changes I had to make. Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back. It's time for Devlog number 3. Now this is actually an extension of the previous video. It's kind of a part 2, and we're going to be taking a deep dive on the creative system. And you're going to get a little bit of a card preview here. You're going to get a little bit of this and that sprinkled in because I'm going in depth about the creative system. But I'm going to save for other videos. I'm going to save lore and card details. And we're even going to get into like the actual rulebook, some of the actual gameplay. We're going to get into that in future videos. But for now, it's time to get creative. Let's start with the first one. The C stands for cool. Cool is going to be something that mostly helps you solve encounters or build relationships with important NPCs, which would happen in encounters. I do envision cool being a part of basketball matches in the future with certain cards and stuff, because if you do put a high amount of stats into your cool, you are kind of risking being less powerful in matches. So that's a really interesting thing because you're gonna have to live with your choice. It's cool to be cool until you're not good at shooting a layup or whatever. So that's what cool is. Rhythm is probably my favorite attribute here. I loved rhythm for my original vision of 3-on-3 because it was going to govern some of the passing mechanics. Like if you had a high rhythm, your pass cards would cost less to use and stuff like that. Or certain players would be able to, it's like Dimer in 2K, if you had a high rhythm, you could pass it to somebody and increase their chances of making a shot after they receive a pass from you. That's what I originally wanted, but rhythm is still similar for the 1v1 actual version of Streetball Quest. Rhythm is kind of your feel for the game. It's going to govern like your crossovers, your step backs, some of the maneuvers you can do with the ball in your hands, kind of like playmaking, dribbling, that kind of thing is what your rhythm is going to be. And I actually envisioned rhythm being kind of a part of some of the encounters as well. Like sometimes people will respect you if you're a high rhythm player, that kind of thing. I believe that actually does still happen in the card game. And rhythm actually governs plenty of perks that have to do with basketball skill. All of these are actually going to have to do with, perk requirements. Some of the perk requirements are going to need this stat and this stat, and so you can kind of figure that out as you go throughout the game. Let's move on to explosiveness. So explosiveness is pretty self-explanatory. It is your kind of athletic power to do explosive things, like mostly dunking or finishing hard layups, that kind of thing. It would be like if you had a high explosiveness rating, you would be able to finish layups through fouls. You'd be able to dunk on people more easier. You would be able to theoretically get rebounds. I don't have rebounding in the game yet, but explosiveness will factor into rebounds along with probably toughness and rhythm and maybe some other things. And it'll roll for kind of a chance to get a rebound. And you'll probably have a lower chance. I'm not going to get a rebounding right now. I'm going to move on. We're going to talk about agility. Agility is part of your athleticism, but it's different than explosiveness. Agility is more like body control. It's more like your side-to-side movements, and it's your ability to finish layups. So your agility is going to determine how good you are at layups. It also kind of determines like if you're quick and speedy. You can use agility to get out of certain situations, and you will need a certain amount of agility to have certain perks. It is a requirement for certain perks. Toughness. So toughness is pretty normal, but this is very unlike any basketball games. You may have kind of like hustle or rebounding ability, like stuff that like may be associated with toughness in regular basketball games. But this is literally how much you can take, how much damage you can take. So this is going to govern your HP. It's going to determine how much damage you can take. Like say for example, your starting toughness level, if it is a 7, you're going to start with 28 HP. But if it's only a 5, you're going to start with 24. And if it's only a 4, well, I believe you're going to start with 22, even though I didn't denote that on this player card here. So that is what toughness is. And it also factors into certain encounters. If you meet somebody who thinks you're tough, that's going to help you. It's pretty rare though, and I think it would be probably a factor in rebounding, but we're not going to get into rebounding. Now, intellect. Moving on to intellect. This is pretty straightforward. It's how smart you are. It's going to help you in certain encounters. People won't take advantage of you if you have a high intellect. Makes sense. You would be able to suss that out and figure out that they're trying to trick you. And this is also going to govern some of your basketball abilities. I didn't mention before when I was talking about agility, but agility makes up one half of your base defense rating, and the other half is with intelligence. So you're going to take, just for defense, because defense, it takes some moving, it takes some agility, and it also takes some intellect. So you're going to take your agility and your intellect, you're going to add those together. Say you come up with 12, that's going to be your starting defensive rating. Now, if you give yourself a low agility and a low intellect, you're going to have a low defensive rating. Say you only have 4 here and 4 here, you're only going to have an 8. So if you want to survive a long time, these are the stats right here that are really going to probably get you the farthest. So if you just keep these default, you're going to be having a tough time defending. But say you put 6 points here and 6 points here, you're going to go up from 8 to 12. So it's really important to kind of lean on at least one of those. And I think easy mode would probably be statting up your agility and your intellect, because these not only are defensive, but they will help you with offensive cards. Like agility is going to help you make layups, and intelligence is going to help you do floaters. And the reason I went with floaters or a smart layup or something that is going to be along those lines, that's kind of a calculation of where the defense is, how much time you have to get something off, kind of calculating if the hand is going to block you and how high to put the ball. So floaters kind of just made it into the intelligence category as well. But there's also going to be defensive perks. There's also going to be certain things that are going to boost your intelligence, and that can help you inside and outside of a basketball match. All right, moving on to vigor. Now, it took me a while to choose the perfect word here for vigor. I definitely wanted there to be, I wanted it to convey strength, but strength is different than vigor. It's also not a V. I needed a V in the word creative. So strength wouldn't have worked, obviously. But this is similar to strength. This is kind of how much damage you're going to do when you're doing something that would cause damage. So maybe you're just kind of doing something that is meant to cause damage. Maybe you get a card that is primarily a card to do damage, but it may be a scoring card. Maybe it's some kind of crossover or skill maneuver card that you're, elbowing somebody on purpose in order to do damage. The damage is going to be determined by how much vigor your character has. Vigor is not super important unless you want to do a bunch of damage, and there are pros and cons with basically killing your opponent before beating them. You could theoretically be bad at offense and just kill all your opponents and still win this game. I don't think your score at the end would be very high, and I think you would have a very tough time with certain encounters because your infamy level would be really high. And also, this is something that is pretty simple in the base game of Streetball Quest, because the vigor stat for the opponents, it doesn't really apply. They just kind of do damage based on how you roll for them. But this would be something applied to every single character. If I had, a 3v3 or a big video game type of setting, everyone would have their own damage output. There will also be items that do affect damage output. Some of them take vigor into account and some of them do not. Okay, so moving on. Now we have efficiency. Efficiency is just kind of your quintessential word in basketball for like how well of a scorer somebody is, a true scorer. And it's mostly used in the context of shooting the ball. If somebody's efficient, they're shooting a high percentage, right? Or they're at least getting to the free throw line and they're able to convert a lot of free throws. I don't really have free throws or fouls in this game necessarily. Fouls are something that was in Enter the Hoopty that were very useful, but there was a consequence when you did them. It would really kind of mess up the flow of the game to add fouls into Streetball Quest, because really the penalty would not be worth the gain. So maybe the trade-off, if I had fouls, would be, you know, based on your vigor, you do a lot of damage, and so maybe it goes through any kind of resistance or block or shield that they have. But then you basically allow them to score, you give them a point. So it just kind of depends. It's something I'm keeping out of the game for now. Anyway, enough about free throws and fouls. Efficiency is going to help you make shots. So when it comes down to it, all jump shot cards, if the higher your efficiency is, the better a roll you're going to get for a jump shot card. And it's also going to help you, it's going to be a requirement for certain perks, and it's going to help you in certain encounters. If somebody likes the way you play, if they like a shooter, if they like someone efficient, maybe they will respect your game, that kind of thing for encounters. It's very surface level at this point, but all of these stats, cool, rhythm, explosiveness, agility, toughness, intellect, vigor, and efficiency, all of these stats, except for cool, will help you inside and outside of basketball matches. They'll help you in encounters, and they'll help you while you're hooping. And in the future, cool will be implemented into some basketball cards as well to help you in your match. Maybe a cool dunk or a cool layup or a cool crossover, it can get a little boost from your cool stat. I think that would be a great addition. But right now it's not in the game. But it's something that as I get farther into the process with expansions and things like that, I can definitely make room for that. All right, so I'm going to jump in right here. This has been the second part of the creative system video. I originally was going to have this part 1 and part 2 be the same video, but as you can see, that would have been extremely long. I was getting really into explaining very in depth all of the creative stats. So that is it for this video. I will see you later, and I'm going to let myself kind of log off this video. In the next video, I'll explain how I kept the open world feel without having 1100 million bazillion hundred cards and a $1,000,000,005 tokens to go along with those cards. And we'll also get into who you play as in this game and a tiny bit of lore. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, leave a comment, tell me what you want to hear about most in Streetball Quest, or ask about anything from the art to the lore, anything. I will eventually answer all of those things. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned.